Hello friends, I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you doing today? How was your weekend? Did you go see Star Wars The Last Jedi? I hope you did. I did. I saw it twice actually. I did the video on Friday, went Saturday, took Alina to see it, and I thought about I almost put out another video this weekend about it. I have more thoughts and I have a theory, I guess. But I just didn't want to walk on Star Wars too much. If you want to hear my thoughts on it, please let me know in the comments and I'll do another video on it. But I don't know that anybody gives a damn what some guy in the middle of nowhere, West Virginia, thinks about Star Wars. So if you do, let me know, and I'll talk about it. My hair is a little crazy. I got a haircut. I didn't have to get a haircut. I was planning on getting a haircut today. I really was. Truthful story. I was like, I'm going to stop after work and get a haircut. But then serendipity strikes because I received a phone call over the weekend, a couple of emails, asking me to call about an interview. And so I got a hold of this company today, and they asked me to come in the morning. So serendipity. The haircut was scheduled. Promise. But that also means that I had to go buy like interview clothing because I don't own any of that stuff. I joke to people that I've never interviewed, but it's basically true. It's not exactly true, but it's basically true that I've never really had to be interviewed. I've never really had to go for an interview. I've always just been given jobs, and I'll tell you that story in a second. But this particular job is a programming job, which is not what I applied for with this company. I applied for a network administration job, but they saw my resume, got kind of excited about it. They know they are another West Virginia company, so they know us, as in Risa. They know my boss. We've worked with them. We actually buy software off of them, and so they got in contact with my boss, and so they're really excited to have me interview because they feel like I'm a perfect fit for this particular position, and I'm like super excited because that's exactly what I want to do. I would much rather get deeper into software development than to be just an IT guy. I enjoy being an IT guy, but I also like learning new things. And being an IT guy, you just kind of, the cycle is you learn a lot of new things because technology changes, but you're just fixing stuff, right? So I'm really excited about this interview tomorrow. And I went today and bought some interview clothing because the last time I had to wear shirt and tie was in the early 2000s, and I threw all that stuff away a long time ago. So let me tell you my story about why I've never interviewed. My very first job was a paper boy, and I started that job, I believe, when I was 14 or 13. I was young. I was very young, and at that time, you weren't a employee of the newspaper. You were a independent contractor. I bought my papers from the newspaper. I collected my subscription fees and then paid for the newspapers. So I wasn't technically an employee. Didn't interview for that, just said, I want this job. They said, okay, it's yours. I lived in the neighborhood that needed the paper. My second job was while I was in high school. I worked at Burger King. And I did not interview for that position because there was a newspaper, like a thing in the paper saying they needed help with people on a cleanup crew. Like they were constructing the Burger King. We didn't have a Burger King my whole childhood in Fairmont. They were constructing a Burger King, and they needed help cleaning up the construction site. And it was just like, show up and call this number. So I called the number. They're like, yeah, show up tomorrow in jeans and we'll put you to work. So I did. I showed up and I cleaned for like a week or maybe a week and a half. I don't know. It was a while. And at the end of that, they said, do you want to work here? And I said, yeah, sure. And they said, okay, you're hired. And so I got that job. Then the next job I had was the Marine Corps. And I mean, I guess you interview for the Marine Corps, kind of. You have to go through this whole process. But, I don't know how a lot of people get turned down. Did the Marine thing. When I got out of the Marines, I went to school. And the first job I had after that was as a car salesman. My buddy was a car salesman. As you'll know, in the automotive industry, well, you might not know, car salesmen come and go like water through a sieve. And so there was really no interview. I showed up. Why do you think you can sell cars? I think I can sell cars because I like talking to people. Okay, can you start today? Yeah, sure. Started working. There was no interview. I mean, there kind of was. I met the manager, and he said, okay, you can start. And I said, okay. And then that was it, because there's always positions available. So I became a car salesman. And while I was doing that, I was terrible at it, and a job position came open in the service department, and they said, do you want to work in the service department? And I said, yes, so I worked in the service department. And then a job came open in the parts department as the manager, and they said, "You want to be the manager?" Yes, so I became the manager. And I was the manager for a few years before I left because somebody else said, "Hey, do you want to come work at my dealership?" I wasn't happy as a manager. They said, "You want to come work at my dealership?" I said, "Yeah." So I went to work at their dealership. Again, no interview process. Then it was, we needed technicians at that dealership. And I said, "I want to be a technician." They said, "Okay, you're a technician." So I became a mechanic for 5 years. Then I got out of that job and I ran into somebody who said, "Hey, you looking for a job?" And I said, "Not really." And he said, "Okay, you're hired." And so I got that job and I worked as a computer repair person for a while. And then a friend of mine said, "Give me your resume." So I wrote a resume because I'd never had one. I wrote a resume real quick and gave it to him. And then I got a phone call asking me to come to my current job. And my current job, I guess that was an interview. I actually sat down at a table with two people and they said, "What can you do? What can't you do? And when can you start?" Now, they didn't say that. They called me like 10 minutes after I left the building, right? Very, very quickly they called me. So, I mean, I guess that was an interview, but it didn't feel like any. It was a very informal. It was very much like, "Wow, you know how to do the things we want to do, do you know how to use Google?" Right? And I got that job. And so I've been in that job for 8 years. Those are all the jobs I've ever had. But aside from side work, I've done lots of side work, but that's all the jobs I've ever had. And I've really, this last job is the closest I've had to an interview. So tomorrow, an actual like cold call interview. I don't know a single person there. I mean, I kind of do. I've heard of them at least. I don't know anybody at the company. Nobody gave them my resume. I don't have an in, I have to show up and put on my best and pretend like I know what I'm talking about. And I'm nervous. I'm really nervous. I looked over their position qualifications for the job, and I know all of the things that they say, at least at a cursory level. I don't consider myself proficient in a lot of those things. I would consider myself a junior level on a lot of the stuff, but some of the stuff I would consider myself a master of. So I don't know what the interview is going to involve, but they told me it would take 3 hours. And it was like an hour with this department, hour with HR, hour with the team that's hiring, and an hour with the rest of the people. And I'm like, okay, that's a lot. So I'm nervous. I'm honestly nervous because I'm going into this completely cold. And I hope that, if they ask me programming questions, they're not some high-level stuff. I hope it's stuff I can figure out. I've never had to do a technical interview like that, and this is a job I don't want to miss. It is a state job, so all of my retirement and my benefits will stay essentially the same. They'll transfer right in, which means that I don't lose all this time like I would do if I went to private industry, and that means a lot to me. Also, the comfortable work environment of this position, I'm really excited about it. I really don't want to screw this up. So I think the plan tonight is the hiring manager actually sent me an email today, like, "Read up on this. It might come up on the interview." And I was like, "Cool, thanks." And so I'm going to go kind of decompress a little bit, play some video games, do some research, iron some clothes so I look presentable. I need to find my boots and clean them. But I'm excited. I'm excited for the future. Yeah. I hope this works out. I'm sure I'll let you know. You'll be the first to know, probably. Not really. That's a lie. I'll text people. Probably be on Twitter. Probably be there. But, yeah, I'm gonna go do all that.